everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Michaela, this is Meekela Reads, and today I'm telling you about the books that I read in November. How are we already in November? And how is November already over? What happened to this year? I swear it was January like 2 months ago. So for y'all who have been around for quite some time, in the last few months I have actually upped my reading so much that I was reading like 9 books a month. And so in comparison, today's video will be much less than that. So I have read a total of 5 books in November. 3 of those were audiobooks and 2 were physical books. So I'm just going to jump into it because this is going to be the shortest wrap up that I've done in quite some time. So the first book that I completed is Bookish and the Beast by Ashley Poston. This is the 3rd book in the Geekerella world, where we're following these characters from basically like a very popular sci-fi series and their relationships with these various different people. This is the 3rd book and it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I am a huge sucker for a Beauty and the Beast retelling and I loved the other books in this series. However, I will say that maybe listening to the audiobook didn't help, but I just was not as invested in this as I was before, and I have a suspicion it is because I'm getting older and I'm not enjoying the same books that I used to. Not to mention, I forgot everything that happened in the first 2 books, so there is that. So this story follows our main character. I legitimately can't even remember her name. That is how disinterested I was in this book. She lives with her father and her mother has passed away quite recently, and her mother was a huge fan of this sci-fi series. So the main kind of start plot trigger of this book is our main girl. She is kind of walking home or driving home and she sees a dog, and the dog runs into this like seemingly abandoned house where she finds this library filled with all of these books that her mum used to read to her from this really popular sci-fi series. And something happens and a guy comes out and she ends up falling into the pool and destroying one of these books. And so for her to repay the value of that book, she starts to work for the person who owns the house, organizing and cataloging their library. And she has the help of, enter our main character, who I didn't really love because he was kind of boring, who is forced to help her along with this. And he is this really misunderstood, kind of like the bad guy in the series. He is actually the bad guy in the series. I think his name is Vance. That's ringing a bell. Naturally, this is a enemies to lovers, hate to love romance, which usually is something that I really enjoy. However, there is like a sprinkle of miscommunication in there and a bit of like distrust, which I really wasn't cool with at the end. Like it just seemed, with the development of the characters, like it shouldn't have happened, but whatever. It is what it is. Overall, I think that this book was like fun to listen to at the time, but very clearly not memorable at all. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I liked even less. It is This Is Not the Jess Show. This was a book that I also listened to on audiobook. I wanted to read this in like February when Booksplosion did it for their like reading club, book club thing that they have. However, it wasn't out in Australia yet and I couldn't get my hands on it, so I never ended up reading it. And I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because I would not have finished this if I was reading it in physical copy. Like I was not into the story. This Is Not the Jess Show follows our main character, Jess. She is living in this kind of like small town in the early 90s. Everything kind of is happening around her when suddenly she notices that some strange things are happening. And then she realizes and finds out through a series of events that her life is actually a lie. And she is a character, or the main character, on this film set far into the future. The idea of this book and the theme of this book were really good. I really think that it had a lot of potential, but it just fell flat for me. I didn't love any of the characters. Like Jess was not the greatest to be in her head. It moved quite quickly, like the pacing was good. I enjoyed that. That kept me relatively engaged as much as an audiobook can. But I didn't love any of the characters. The story fell flat. A lot of stuff just kind of like happened. I was just really glad to actually be done with this book, to be honest. And like realistically, her response to being told that her entire life is a lie just felt a bit off. Like it didn't feel like a decent response to that. Like I feel like I would have reacted much differently to what she did. she just kind of kept going, and it was odd. And then also, like, to do with that, we learn about these characters and we get to know these characters as they are on the show, and then we find out that none of it was real, and then all of that character development is gone and we have to rebuild them in our brains. I don't know, I found that really jarring. So that was This Is Not the Jess Show. I originally gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, but I kind of want to reduce it to a 2.5 because of how much I didn't like it and how much I don't like continuing to talk and think about it. So also, there's another one coming out, and I think it's called like This Is Not the Real World or something like that. So I probably won't be reading it, and I probably won't read this again. So I'm glad that I did not purchase it in the first place. Yeah. The next book I read, however, I did enjoy, which was really, really lovely. I have an entire reading vlog for this, so I will not say too much about it, but I did read The Switch by Beth, and I did this as a buddy read with Sharni from Sharni Books. I will leave the link to her channel in the description down below, and she also did a vlog where she kind of discussed this a bit in the first couple of days. So The Switch follows our two main characters, Lena and Eileen is Lena's grandmother. Now, at the start of this book, Lena is kind of put on this forced sabbatical because her mental health is suffering from her sister passing the previous year, and she's just really not coping with it well. She's trying to power through, she's trying to, keep going with work and doing all of the things that she normally would do, but her performance is just suffering and her anxiety is getting so far in the way. So she is forced to go on a 2-month holiday that is paid, and in that time she decides to switch lives with her grandmother. Enter Eileen, who is this lovely old lady who lives in a very small town, and she has recently split up with her husband, who, from the sounds of it, was kind of like domestic violence-y, which I'm glad they've separated. But Eileen is trying to find someone who she wants to be in a relationship with, basically. So she has her list of all of the eligible bachelors over 70 in the village, and she's trying to cull it down to who she would like to pursue. However, there's no one. So this is a perfect opportunity for Eileen to also switch lives with Lena and go to London and see what the dating scene in London is for over 70s. This book followed many different perspectives of people dealing with grief, dealing with loss, but also coming into themselves and kind of rebuilding yourself after some terrible things happen. I really enjoyed this. I think it was such a fun read. I am definitely going to jump into some other Beth O'Leary works in the future. And also just buddy reading is the best experience. I love buddy reading now. Thank you, Sharni. It was great. But I ended up giving The Switch 4 out of 5 stars. The next book is by far my favorite book that I have read this month, and it is The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. Again, I have an entire reading vlog literally dedicated to this book because I was so excited to read it. I have been excited to read The Love Hypothesis for months, ever since Book of the Month came out with it, and it circulated BookTube. It really sounded up my alley and it did not disappoint. Oh, it was so good. Oh my goodness. So The Love Hypothesis is a hate-to-love romance following our main character Olive, as she is trying to basically convince her best friend that she's over her ex because her best friend is in love with her ex. So she's trying to get them to get together, but to do that she has to pretend to date someone else. Now, in the very first chapter, Olive is thrown into a very tricky situation in which she has to basically make out with the first person that she sees because her friend is coming and she told her friend she was on a date. So enter our main male protagonist, Adam Carlson, Dr. Carlson. He is the broody, menacing, just really mean lecturer or professor of this university campus, basically. He's cold, no one gets along with him, no one likes him, and Olive ends up making out with him in the first chapter. So from there, they develop this fake dating relationship in which they have to try to convince Olive's friend that she does not, in fact, love her ex-boyfriend so that her friend can date her ex-boyfriend. This was phenomenal. It has every single hate to love, fake dating, forced contact, one bed trope to an extent that it was great. It was so good. If any of those things are up your alley, please read The Love Hypothesis. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. I flew through it and I would have read it in one sitting had I given myself a chance. Yes. But that is all of the books that I read in November. Let me know if you have read any of these, and please, oh my god, if you've read The Love Hypothesis, please tell me, because I need to talk to someone about this book. I love this book, and I need another person. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching if you have made it this far. I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!